Good evening, Cherries fans, and welcome to this latest special show here on Up the Cherries in all departments. Now, before I welcome on my special guest, here's a little bit about our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. To find out what they can do for you, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. Now, my special guest today has played for AFC Bournemouth, Yeovil Town, Doncaster, as well as a couple of non-league sides as well. Also, does the number 2 minutes and 30 seconds ring a bell to you? It remains a record. I think the fans amongst us will know exactly who is coming on. It is a pleasure to welcome onto Up the Cherries in all departments, James Hayter. Evening, James. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yes, nice to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on our show. So we're going to start at the very, very beginning. You grew up on the Isle of Wight. What were your earliest footballing memories growing up?
Playing for a little local team over there, basically called Lake and New Church. They were the closest team, basically, to my house. So just sort of playing for them, and always loved football. I remember mum and dad always tell me from the minute I could really walk, really, I'd always had a football with me, and it's just something that I loved doing, and would always play in my spare time after school. And yeah, like I say, played for a little local team. I think started at, back then it was sort of under nines, I think was the earliest they sort of started, and now it's a lot younger. But yeah, I think I was playing for them when I was sort of under 7, under 8, and sort of just worked my way up from there, basically.
Nice. So who did you support as a kid, and who was your favourite player?
Teams I supported, it was Liverpool back then, because they were sort of really the main team. But obviously being on the Isle of Wight, it was difficult to get to games. I didn't really get to sort of many matches. My dad was a West Ham supporter, so I sort of looked out for them. And then, as you sort of say there, it was more players that I actually liked. Loved Chris Waddle, sort of growing up. Obviously Gary Lineker. Look up to players like them, and then obviously a little bit later, the sort of Alan Shearer and stuff, of being a goal scorer, and just his mindset and what he sort of did, basically, and the amount of goals he scored. Yeah, he was another one that I looked up to.
So, James, did you always want to be a footballer?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it was my aim as such, and obviously a lot of kids did want to do it, and that was sort of everything that I sort of worked towards. So it was, yeah, I was lucky enough with having some really sort of helpful parents, and as you say, sort of being from the Isle of Wight, it's difficult sometimes, but my dad was great at taking me places and sort of making sure that I was always available to play for teams. And then, I say, as I got older, started going for trials and playing for teams on the mainland, and it was, so I was lucky in that sense that I had sort of really supportive parents, and yeah, no, they were brilliant for me.
Nice. So you joined the AFC Bournemouth youth system. How were you spotted, and how were your early days at the club?
I was spotted I just said, going for a trial. Actually, I played for Brighton as a schoolboy, under 15s and under 16s, and I got told, I think in the January time leading up to in the under 16s, that I wouldn't be getting a YTS. So it was a matter of going for a few trials. I went to a few different clubs, and luckily enough, I ended up going to Bournemouth. Got asked back for another trial, and then sort of played a few games for them at under 16s, and I think I was the last one to get selected for a YTS. I think there was 8 of us in total, and I think I was the 8th one that actually got taken on.
What was it like at the club in those days? Did you have much contact with Mel Machin as a youth team player?
Yeah, we had a fair bit, because obviously it was a small club back then. We'd all train at Chapelgate, was the training ground. So the first team would be to the pitch next to us, and we'd be training like right next to them. So it was, in that sense, it was great. Like, you were in and around the pros from that very early stage, and obviously we were based at the ground, and so we see all the lads there. We were still doing the boots and stuff, so you'd be allocated your couple of players whose boots you had to look after, and yeah, so you all have the contact with the first team, and like I say, Mel Machin and John Williams, they were always in and around, and so it was, yeah, we're all, like I say, had contact with them right the way through.
Nice. So tell us about the memories when you made your debut, Peterborough 96-97.
Yeah, I travelled a couple of times with the first team in the previous couple of weeks. I sort of, to get a sort of a feel for it. I'd done quite well in the youth team, scored quite a few goals. And obviously the club at that time didn't have masses of players. And like I said, well, I'd done reasonably well. So I got I think it was the week before that I travelled up to Chesterfield with the team, and actually was a fish and chip man, basically. Had to get the fish and chip order and the team and stuff. But it was nice just to be in and around the team. And with the first team, I warmed up with the team and stuff like that beforehand. And then I think it was the Tuesday night, I again travelled, and I was named on the bench, and wasn't actually the best result. We lost, I think it was 3-1 or 3-0, I think it was. But yeah, I think I got on for the last 15-20 minutes, coming on for Steve Robinson. So I mean, it's something you dream about, and to make my debut was great.
Did you find times hard after such a promising start for the Cherries, not getting in the squad?
Yeah, no, it was. There were difficult times. As I say, I sort of had that taste in the back end of my youth team. Then I think I started reasonably well in my first year as a pro, but then I had a good few months of actually not being involved at all, and you sort of tend to worry a little bit and things. Then I think like when the team actually went to the LDV Vans final, we played Grimsby, I didn't even make the squad or anything, didn't travel, and you sort of do worry a little bit. But I ended up going out on loan, I think, to Salisbury like the following season, and it sort of stuff turned around from me from there. To be quite honest, club had a few injuries, and I'd done well out whilst on loan, and then I came back and sort of got my chance and sort of played, and I was pretty much in the squad from then on. So I think it's definitely, when you talk about it, having a bit of luck on your side and sort of biding your time, and things sort of went for me at that stage.
So just a quick one then. So when you were at Salisbury, how was it while you were on loan there?
I really enjoyed it, to be honest. It was nice to be playing sort of regularly. I, like I say, scored a few goals. Jeff Butler was the manager, who was great with me, and all the lads were quite welcoming. So it was I say not far. I still trained at Bournemouth, and I literally just went and played the games at the weekend. And I say it went well. And I think it was Mark Steen was actually ill, and I got the call from Mel Machin saying he's recalling me on loan, and ended up starting against Man City on Saturday. It was crazy. So from going, I think I played Nuneaton Borough the week before, and then it was, oh right, you're starting against Man City on the Saturday. And it was like, Christ, this is a bit of a. But I done reasonably well, and yeah, no, I stayed pretty much in the squad from then on.
And I remember after Mel recalled you, James, you instantly scored in our 4-0 win at Stoke as well. Do you feel that the time at Salisbury, along with that game, helped you establish yourself in the side?
Yeah, definitely. I think we've talked about sort of back then. It was great. You're always in and around the first team. There was like a proper reserve team then, so I played quite a lot with in men's football as such. And then having that spell of having competitive football on loan at Salisbury, and then coming back and doing quite well, it definitely boosted my confidence and sort of set me up for the rest of my career, I suppose, as such.
Okay, so you scored 4 goals in a 5-2 win against Bury. Tell us the story of that day.
I don't know. I think we weren't actually having a great run at the time. I don't think we weren't doing brilliantly, but just sort of things went right for me, I think, on that day. Ended up scoring 4. I think it was Peter Grant's first game, actually. So he'd sort of come, and I think it was his first start, and it was Warren Cummings. So he spoke about it a couple of times. It was his first game on loan, and managed to score, and they just basically kept on coming the whole game. Ended up with 4 goals, and I think it's 5-2. I think we won.
Yeah.
And that was sort of set us up for that season. And I think Jermaine came in the week after. And that sort of, Jermaine Defoe come in on the Tuesday, I think, after that. And so it was, we had a good run and just missed out on the playoffs that season.
James, I tend to remember as well, there was quite a lot of clubs at the time who were chasing your services. But you remained with us. What made you stay at the club instead of moving elsewhere?
I really enjoyed my time there. I loved the club, loved all the lads that were there. So there was a bit of interest in a few clubs, but there was nothing that I sort of really fancied at that time. I probably could have gone to Bristol City a couple of years before I did end up moving. I think Huddersfield, a couple of other clubs that showed interest, but it was all the similar league. And I was thinking, if I'm still in League One, I was at that stage. I was thinking that I want to stay here with Bournemouth and see how well we can do here. So we had a really good set of lads. We had some really good players like at that stage as well. Say Wade, Gareth O'Connor, like Carl Fletcher, and you actually thought, looking back, we probably actually should have done better than we actually did. I just really enjoyed the place.
So you played in the playoff final victory against Lincoln City in Cardiff. How proud of a moment was it to play in that game?
Yeah, it was brilliant. Massive stadium, obviously getting to a playoff final. I felt like I played a big part. Like I scored a couple of goals in the semis against Bury, I think it was. And it was just a great game, and it was just so nice. Obviously, Carl Fletcher got them couple of goals quite early as well, and like Steve Fletcher, I think we were 3-0 up at half time. So we were in just such a nice almost spot to be in as such, and we were always quite comfortable in the game. So to actually play in a final like that it was brilliant, and obviously a great achievement after getting relegated the year before.
Did you always have a positive feeling, James, going into that game that we were going to win promotion?
Yeah. I think we'd done well against Lincoln previously in that season, and I think, I say, we were just quite confident really that throughout. I say I had a lot of trust in the players around us. We were all good friends, like all off the pitch as well. So I think that really helps. Had a really good team spirit, and like I say, it got off to such a great start as well. And it just almost settles you down straight away. And I just think it was almost never in doubt for us to not win that game.
Of course, you played up front that day with Steve Fletcher. What was Biggin like to play with?
Yeah, I loved it. I loved playing with Fletch. It was, especially sort of back then, you had a lot of centre halves who they're always quite physical and stuff. So Fletcher would almost take all the physical battle off of me, and he would just I'd just have to gamble off his flick-ons. I love playing with him. Like I say, sort of defenders back then would tend to want to try and fight him, and they'd be attracted towards him, and it would leave me some space. And we had a really good partnership, and scored quite a lot of goals, like playing alongside him. So it was, I really enjoyed it. And as we said before, like I got on really well with him off the pitch as well. I'm like still friends to this day.
Well, of course, there was something that happened the following season, and you know what I'm going to talk about now, James, do you? I tell you what, let's build it up a little bit. Firstly, were you disappointed not to start that game against Wrexham?
A little bit, yeah. But I don't know, I think everyone knows the story. I'd missed the game on the Saturday because my son had been born, so I'd missed the game at the weekend. So I was disappointed, but I understood why I wasn't starting because, like I say, I'd missed the previous game, and I think it was at Brighton. Although they hadn't won, I think they'd have a good performance, so I can understand why I didn't sort of start. So, it was all I wanted to. The longer the game went on, you could see they had a man sent off as well. I could see that there was chances being created. So I just think, I just want to get on because I think there's a goal here for me. And I remember actually coming on and Steve Fletcher. I come on for Steve Fletcher. He went, "Oh, there's definitely goals here for you." You know, when literally come on the last 85th minute, I think it was, and 3 minutes later, it was a completely different picture. Yeah, it was crazy, and how mental it went afterwards. Didn't realise, obviously, at the time quite how big it sort of was.
Yes, obviously, when you came on, tell us in your own words what happened next.
It was just everyone was just sort of talking about it, how quick it was, and I was like, yeah, it was sort of quick. And then it wasn't until I say afterwards, someone said, "Well, I think that could actually be a record." And then the later as it sort of went on that evening, it got bigger and bigger, the sort of story. And then I got a phone call from sort of the press guy and said, "Look, we're going to have to do like an actual press day tomorrow. Can you come in? Because this story's getting bigger and bigger." And I turned up to the ground the next day, and the more I sort of heard about it, and there was about 15, 20 press people at the ground, and which was sort of unheard of for Bournemouth at that time. And had to talk about the story, obviously go through it all. And then it had come out that my mum and dad had come to the game and they'd left early to catch the earlier ferry and missed all the goals and were listening to it on the radio. So that made the story even bigger. And it's great to look back on. And it's just unbelievable really to have that record still to this day.
What did your parents say when they realised that you'd scored that hat-trick and they'd already set off for home?
Yeah, no, I spoke to them straight after. They were listening to it on Radio Solent on the way to the ferry, and heard that I scored one. They're like, "Oh, brilliant!" And then, like I say, within a couple of minutes, they scored a hat trick. Like, "Oh, for God's sake!" So they'd gone to get that earlier ferry. They're obviously disappointed that they did, but no, I think they've watched it a few times on video since.
There was a later ferry though that they could have caught.
Yeah, they could have. I think it was a 10 o'clock or a midnight. So I think it was. So I thought, we'll shoot off, get the 10 o'clock ferry. Didn't want to wait around till midnight to get the last one back. And no, I think they ruled that for a while afterwards.
So when were you made aware that you had broken a record which had survived 52 years?
Quite quickly after the game. Like I said, I think it was Mark McAdam, who was the press officer then, was actually sort of spoke to me, and he's the one who told me about coming in the next day and said that you've broken like a record and stuff. But it wasn't until really the next day that I sort of came in and saw the amount of press and sort of how big it was. And then I've got letters from Australia from like different people, and like I had loads of sort of fan mail and stuff. And it was quite amazing, sort of quite how big it was.
You did score 94 goals for the club. Which of those goals would you say is the most memorable?
Tough one. Most memorable. Probably most memorable was probably the goal at the new stadium. Obviously, Brian Stock got the first goal. I got the second one, but I dribbled around a few players and slotted it in the corner. That's probably the one that I actually remember most from my time at Bournemouth. Obviously, everyone talks about the hat trick, and that was brilliant. But the one I actually probably remember most is is the first goal at the new stadium. Sorry, the second goal at the new stadium.
So how was it playing under Sean O'Driscoll, and how pivotal was he in you eventually joining Doncaster Rovers?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed his training. He really made you think about the game, and yeah, he was a really nice bloke, and yeah, he definitely played obviously a major part, him and Richard O'Kelly, in sort of why I ended up leaving. I had him obviously as my youth team manager to start with, and then he eventually became first team manager. And no, just tactically, he was brilliant. Really knew his stuff, and I think really knew how to get the sort of the best out of me. So it was almost a no-brainer in the end, sort of why I sort of followed him and why I went and stuff. So it was, yeah, no, I've got a lot to thank him for.
Of course, just going back a little bit, Sean left the club and Kevin Bond took over. What was your relationship like with Bond?
Yeah, I got on okay with him. Like the first sort of time he come in, he was quite complimentary. He said that he really liked me as a player, and he tried to get Harry Redknapp to buy me at Portsmouth when he was there as an assistant. He sort of told me in that. Obviously, the club was a lot different sort of back then, and it was the season that I sort of had under him. I actually played quite a lot in midfield because I think basically the players we sort of had at the time, we had quite good strikers. We had obviously Fletch, Sam Vokes, and Brett Pittman coming through, and yeah, I ended up playing in midfield a little bit and stuff, and it was a bit sort of disjointed that last season, but it was sort of our better players as such were all seems to be forward, and I think we got Dave McGoldrick on loan as well, and it was almost like because I had done that in the past and I could play a couple of positions, I ended up getting sort of moved around a bit, and so no, it was a little bit, like I say, disjointed that last season, but in terms of I got on quite well with Kevin Bond, and his training was actually really enjoyable. I think he obviously tactically was probably obviously not up to like where Sean was and stuff, but no, he definitely was had a decent relationship.
So moving to when you went to Doncaster, the first season at the Keepmoat was an eventful one. Do tell us the story of the season.
Yeah, no, obviously ended up leaving Bournemouth that summer. It was still a difficult decision. I got pulled. You always go for meetings at the end of the season, so I got told in the meeting literally 2 days after the last game of the season that Doncaster had put a bid in and that I can go and speak to him basically. So I went up, spoke to Sean, had a look round, obviously the new stadium at the Keepmoat and stuff, and the training ground, and knew that the club basically weren't in the greatest financial position sort of back then, obviously at Bournemouth, and they basically sort of said to me that they want me to stay, but they could do with the money, to be quite honest. I think they needed that to get through the summer. I think I've said to it a few people before, I think my last year at Bournemouth, I don't think I was paid in full once in the whole last year I was there. You always ended up sort of getting your money, but I mean, it was obviously a completely different club to what we're sort of looking at sort of now. So yeah, no, it was still a big decision because I think I'd been there 11 years at Bournemouth and 9 years as a pro, and I had a testimonial written into my contract. I still had, I think, 2 years left, but I just thought at the end it was probably the best choice, and it probably didn't. It obviously worked out quite well because obviously the end of that season ended up with Doncaster getting promoted, and Bournemouth ended up going down on the final day. So no, it was like I say, I enjoyed my time at Doncaster. Ended up with me scoring the winner in the playoff final at Wembley. So it ended up being a very good decision.
And of course, in that playoff final, I believe somebody who you knew previously set you up as well, didn't they?
Yeah, no, corner from Brian Stock. Yeah, we've obviously played a lot of games at Bournemouth together, and someone that I still speak to, got a good relationship with, and yeah, no, someone I spoke to beforehand about going up there to Doncaster, and he had nothing but good things to say about it. So yeah, he's he set me up for that one, and to be honest, he set me up for a few over the years. I've got to say, yeah, no, he's a great striker of the ball and got great delivery. So it was nice to get a header straight on goal against and beat Leeds 1-0, like I said, in the final.
Considering that Doncaster hadn't been in the Championship for well over 50 years, did you realise the enormity of that goal? And also, what were the celebrations like?
Yeah, celebrations it was brilliant. Yeah, no, you sort of did realise the enormity of it. I mean, you just look the size of Leeds. We played them in the league that season. I think obviously being Doncaster not far to Leeds, I think a lot of almost Doncaster fans, like first or second teams, were Leeds. And it was, I think, you saw on the day, there was just a sea of white. I think there was 85, nearly 90,000 there that day, and there must have been 50 or 60,000 Leeds fans. And I think they'd managed to get in the Doncaster end and everything. So it was massive for us to actually beat them. It was ended up being a nice story. I hadn't actually played much at all the second half of the season when I was at Doncaster. I got injured in the January, had to have an operation, and because of basically how well they did after that, I think I came back in the February time. I didn't play a game until the playoff semi-final. That was my first start for like 3 months, and I was quite lucky because one of the other lads in the first game of the playoff semi headbutted one of the Southend players and got sent off, which it worked in my favour. So I played the home leg at the second leg in the playoff semi-final against Southend, it was, I think, which we won 5-1, really quite comfortable. And then you almost knew after that, we won 5-1. I must be playing in the final. So it was, yeah, no. So it was nice. Yeah, like I say, played there, managed to score the winning goal, which is, as a striker, it's everything you sort of dream of. You go there, go to Wembley, win 1-0, and you scored the winning goal. So it was, couldn't have worked out any better in the end. Obviously, disappointing for Bournemouth that season, as I think it was we lost to Cheltenham on the last day of the season, which would have put us at Doncaster up automatically, but we lost, which kept Cheltenham up and made Bournemouth go down. I think because they got the points deduction. So it was disappointing in that way, but obviously great for myself personally.
So you played a little deeper due to Billy Sharp playing in a more advanced role for Doncaster in the Championship. How did you find that transition?
Yeah, as I sort of alluded to a little bit earlier, I had played quite a number of positions when I was at Bournemouth. Even in my younger career, I'd sort of played wide quite a bit and midfield a couple of times. So, as you say, when Billy sort of Sharp come in, who was the number 9 as such, we sort of slightly changed, and we played like a 4-3-3 at Doncaster, and I played from the left and James Coppinger played from the right, and Billy Sharp was up down the middle. And to be honest, I actually really enjoyed it. He's a really good bloke, really good team at the time, and I was just happy to be playing in the Championship. So I was never going to really almost score the goals that I sort of had done previously at Doncaster, playing from that position, especially some of the fullbacks you come up against in that league. But we done quite well and held our own for a few seasons. I think 4 seasons we managed to stay up in the Championship for a team like Doncaster was really quite something.
What would you say, James, are the best memories apart from that playoff final at Doncaster?
Probably similar to what I said before. So I had a really good set of lads there. So it was just a nice place to be around, nice little training ground. And we had a real togetherness, and that's what sort of kept us going for a good few seasons. Like I say, we spent nearly four seasons in the Championship, and just almost all unfolded in that last season, where I think it really shows you how team spirit and stuff like that can be sort of split. Because I don't know if you remember, that was sort of towards the Sean got the sack, and then they brought in Dean Saunders, and then that's when they tried the sort of the foreignish experiment as such, when they started bringing in like Pascal Chimbonda and El Hadj Diouf and stuff, and it caused a real sort of rift in the dressing room. and it was basically that it was almost the beginning of the end then, and we just sort of kept. It was almost a matter of time before we got relegated. So disappointing end to it, but yeah, I've got real good memories of my sort of time there.
So you left the club at the end of 2011-12 season and joined Yeovil Town, who had been expected to struggle. What made you go there?
Speaking to Gary Johnson first and foremost, I wanted to get back to near Bournemouth, because I'm class Bournemouth as my home, even though I'm from the Isle of Wight. I'm sort of settled here, so I wanted to get back nearer here. That was one of the closest places I could sort of get. With I'd obviously tried to get back to Bournemouth, but they didn't want me at the time. Gary Johnson was a big draw. As I said earlier, he had tried to sign me when he was at Bristol City previous, and I think he liked me as a player. He said some good things about the club, and they were obviously a small club, and they hadn't, obviously with a small wage bill and everything like that. But I saw a couple of the players that he was bringing in and things like that, and he said he thinks that they can have a real go, which ended up being unbelievable. Ended up promoted in my first season at Yeovil, and like I say, I think we had the second lowest budget in the league at the time, and for a club like Yeovil to get into the Championship is it is almost unheard of, and it was just an unbelievable achievement. The same thing, like real good togetherness, real good group that he put together, and yeah, real good memories of my time there.
You're quite correct. It was the second smallest budget in League One that season, and you didn't struggle at all. You finished in 4th spot. Were you surprised how did Gary Johnson then approach the playoffs?
Well, we had Sheffield United over the 2 legs. We'd beat them at home, and we drew away in the league. So we knew that we didn't have anything to fear as such. We played them and done well against them in the league, and I think he really sort of just used the underdog tag, to be quite honest. It was, look, no one's expecting us to beat these or to get promoted or anything, and he was pretty relentless in the way he sort of went about stuff, and he was it was just sort of almost that, really play on the sort of the underdog card, and you couldn't really it was just really quite good. He always pushed us and wouldn't let any of us slack. He was quite demanding in that way. But yeah, I think that was the big thing he did, though. And then we actually lost the first leg, and he went mental in the change room afterwards, and nearly fighting one of the lads. And it was almost, looking back, quite comical, but I think that's what got it up. And then we had such a good start in the second leg at home, and ended up beating Sheffield United. And just setting ourselves up. And for Brentford, we had in the final, who we played 3 times, I think, that season, twice in the league and once in the cup, and we'd beaten all 3 times. So we went there feeling quite confident.
So as you've said, obviously you overcome Sheffield United and Brentford in the final to get the Somerset club into the Football League. What was the day like, and the memories made that season?
Oh, massive memories. Yeah, we had some, like I say, got some really good lads together. It was a massive achievement just for a club like Yeovil, who were averaging probably 3,000 or 4,000 in League One. All of a sudden we're going to Wembley with a chance of getting to play in the Championship against massive teams spending millions and millions, which we managed to do. And it was just such a real big achievement, and like I say, real good group of lads that we had there, everyone sort of working for each other. And it was, some good friends that I've still got to this day, just from that group, and lads that have moved on and done well and gone on to sort of bigger and better things off the back of that as well. So it's really nice.
And Yeovil managed to achieve some really memorable moments in the Championship. What would you say were the best and worst moments from the time in the second tier?
I I don't know, any sort of results we got were like unbelievable. Like I say, we're going to places like Leicester, Middlesbrough, like just playing at them clubs, and we did well. We gave a good account of ourselves. I mean, in the Championship, I think our budget was probably, it was obviously the lowest, but I think the next highest would probably have been 10 times. The next lowest, sorry, was probably 10 times what our budget was. I mean, so we were really, really like obviously up against it from the start. But same thing, Gary Johnson. We had a decent squad. He managed to get some good loan players in as well. We had Shane Duffy come in, who went on to play for Brighton a long time. We Ishmael Miller, he managed to get in. So, and we made we had a real good crack at it, to be honest. I think we ended up going down, I think we were 3 points. That was all that was sort of in it. And which was no disgrace at all. Like I say, for the actual budget we had and the actual size of the club, disappointing. And sort of what sort of happens then, quite a lot of the lads got moved off the back of that, and it ended up, obviously Yeovil ended up on a little bit of a sort of a free fall after that. But it was unbelievable to get there and to play against them clubs for a team like that.
So, so with regards to while at Yeovil, you played against Manchester United, and it was one of the greatest games of your career. How did it feel with your son walking out as a mascot?
Yeah, no, that was brilliant. He's a massive Man United fan, so it was. Yeah, he was absolutely buzzing that I managed to obviously get him as a mascot that day as well. And he just remember just looking at him in the warm up, and he was just mesmerised by just looking at Wayne Rooney. He managed to the captain Joe Edwards said he can walk up the front with me, so he was stood next to Wayne Rooney, just looking up at him and just watching him. And I managed to get him a couple of shirts from the game. And yeah, no, it's massive. Obviously, that was right towards the end of my career, and to be able to do that, and for my son to be able to be there, and like I say, be a mascot, and that's memories that I'll always take with me and never forget.
Of course, playing for Yeovil and Doncaster, you did play a couple of times against the Cherries. Did you find playing against this football club that, of course, you started your career with and you hold in such high regard, did you find that difficult?
Yeah, no, it was difficult, to be honest. Yeah, no, it was different, especially after Eddie took over as well, and playing against him. And 2 years running, we played it on Boxing Day and got the runaround, to be quite honest. But when I was at Yeovil, we couldn't get anywhere near Bournemouth, and it was quite frustrating. Yeah, it was weird playing there. And I went in the office both times afterwards, just speaking to Eddie and that, and it was just, like I say, it was just quite strange, quite surreal when you actually sort of look back. I didn't actually enjoy the games at all, like looking back on them, and it almost just wanted them sort of over and done with, to be quite honest.
So you left the club after Yeovil were relegated to League Two. What do you think was responsible for the collapse of a side who defied the odds to get into the second tier of English football?
Like I said before, it's easy. Like, it was a little bit of just recruitment, to be quite honest. We've, like I say, done really well, got promoted to the Championship, made a good account of ourselves in the Championship. Then that back five that we had in the Championship, every one of them left. We had the goalie, Marek Stek, went to Sparta Prague. Luke Ayling, who's now at Leeds, he was our right back. He went to Bristol City. I think Byron Webster, he ended up moving to Millwall. The other centre half was, like I say, Shane Duffy, who went back to Everton. And then I think one of the big things was actually we lost the left back, Jamie McAllister. He was 35, I think. Like, he was our captain, and he didn't get taken on. He got released. And I think just basically the players that were brought in over that summer, it just didn't click, and it didn't really gel. And losing that sort of many players, we lost the midfielder as well. Ed Upson ended up moving as well to Millwall. So yeah, it was basically that, because of almost how well we done, and obviously how small the club were, that teams are just cherry picked basically. So from that team that had basically been in League One to the Championship, 5 or 6 of the lads had left which was always going to happen. They moved on to bigger and better things, which you obviously I'd been there myself. But yeah, it was just the lads that came in. It just didn't do as well, and it was a struggle. And Gary Johnson ended up losing his job. Terry Skibberton took over, and then brought Paul Sturrock in for the end of the season. And yeah, it just wasn't enough to sort of keep us up. And then I think it was basically my contract came out then, so it was a case of Paul Sturrock. I think literally just got rid of everyone who was out of contract. Basically, they just sort of tried to start again, which is obviously disappointing. In the end of my sort of almost my professional football career, then I was 35, I think it was, and so that was a sad day for me off the back of that. But sort of these things happen.
Do you think the promotion to the Championship with Yeovil was really, considering what happened next and now that Yeovil are in the National League, do you think that it might have been a cause for that spiral from the very start?
I think you actually look at it, it probably is, to be quite honest, because they were League One. They'd been there. They obviously were a conference team. They got up League Two, League One. I think they'd been in League One for quite a while. And like I say, had that promotion, done quite well. And yeah, I think it was just such that big turnaround of players, and to lose that. And like I say, once you don't get that group together and it doesn't get right, and you almost, as much as you get yourself in a winning cycle, the club had basically got itself in almost that downhill spiral and that losing cycle, and they're hard to get out of. And yeah, it's ended up, obviously they went down to League Two. I think they had a season in League Two and then have gone down into the conference. So it's a shame to see where a club that had been in the league for quite a while is actually back down in the conference now. Hopefully they can see the ways back out. But yeah, no, it's difficult when you, like say, you get into that cycle of losing to turn it around.
So when you left, you dropped into non-league, but was reunited with Lee Bradbury. Was he the main reason for going to Wesley Park?
Yeah, no, I spoke to him. Yeah, he was quite keen for me to sort of come there, and so being back in Bournemouth and another big draw. I had two of my good friends, Brian Stock and Warren Cummings, were both there at the time as well. So it was, and they both live in Bournemouth, so it was almost a no-brainer as such. So it was, we could all travel in together to Havant, and it was part-time, and I'd started doing some coaching and stuff. So everything sort of fit then. And like I say, I was 35, 36. I knew that I wasn't really. I did actually get offered a contract, a couple of other contracts, but they were still sort of conference, and they were too far. It would have mean moving for the sake of a year. It was never going to be an option really. So it was, yeah, no, that was my best option at the time. And yeah, I knew Lee Bradbury. He was another Isle of Wight boy. So yeah, and I knew him, and after speaking to him, it was, yeah, no, I went there and enjoyed my time at Havant. I ended up there 3 years, I think I spent there. Although it was disappointing. My first season we actually got relegated, but then 2 promotions after that, so it ended up being, like I say, successful couple of years there.
Believe it or not, we did have Bradders on a couple of weeks back, James. So
yeah, I know. Yes, I was saying. But yeah, you spoke to him a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, he's a nice bloke. I like him.
Yeah, he is. He definitely is. But one thing that I didn't realise about you is you did spend a very short spell on loan at Weymouth. How did you end up going there for 3 games?
Just when I was at my last season at Havant, basically, I hadn't played much. I didn't play much in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
The lads were doing really well, and I was just on the bench most weeks. And Mark Molesley actually phoned up Bradders, I think, and asked about have we got a striker or something. And to say, I think Bradders, out of respect to me, said, "Look, I don't want you to go." He's like, "But I know you obviously, if you want to go and play some games, Weymouth would like to sort of to take you." And just basically gave me the option. He said, "I'll leave it totally up to you." And I said, "Yeah." And to be honest, I thought, might as well go and just play a few games. And yeah, that's basically how it come about. It's because like I say, I was sitting on the bench at Havant at the time. I think I was 37, 38. So I just thought, yeah, go there for a little spell and played, and it was okay. My time at Weymouth, they were doing well at the time, but in terms of actually playing that, I didn't actually play. I think I started one game. We had someone sent off. So obviously being that age, I sort of came off quite early in that game. But no, it's a nice, good little club down there, and yeah, no, it was just to get myself a couple of games basically.
So yeah, so what would you say from your entire career was your favourite goal?
Favourite goal. I scored one at Swindon for Bournemouth that I have good memories of. It was Brian Stock actually again sort of chipped it in over the defence, and I sort of ran onto it and hit it first time on the volley into the roof of the net. That's one of sort of my best goals that stand out. Another one for Bournemouth when I was under Mel Machin was at Wickham away. I think the goalies kicked it out, and I sort of came straight to them in the halfway line. I've just dribbled, and they've just kept backing off, and I've hit it from about 20, 25 yards, and it's gone straight in the top corner. So yeah, that's one that I remember quite fondly as well.
Stocky does like setting you up for important goals, don't he, James? Let's be honest.
Yeah, no, he set me up for a good few. I did say that earlier, yeah, and we had a good understanding. I knew, obviously, playing with him for the amount of time, he even played with him obviously at Bournemouth, Doncaster, and then Havant as well. And he would always look for me, and I knew he was making runs that he had that sort of quality to find me as well. So it was, we had a real good understanding.
Apart from Stocky, who would you say is the best player that you played with and against?
With probably John Oster when I was at Doncaster. Ability-wise, he was brilliant. Probably him and James Coppinger, who's obviously just sort of retired not that long ago. He went on to play till he was 40 at Doncaster. He was brilliant, like great ability. And I think of any pro that at Doncaster you can't help but like sort of learn from him. He was probably the most talented individual that I played with, but his work ethic was second to none as well. Usually you get sort of people like that who tend to not be quite at it in training and everything, but day in, day out, his attitude and his application were brilliant. And like I say, he was probably one of the most talented individuals I sort of played with the ball as well. So it's almost no surprise why he ended up playing for that long and played so many games for Doncaster. And like I say, I think he played till he was 40 professionally. So yeah, in terms of probably them two, in terms of actual best players I played with, played against some good players over here. I would say played against Wayne Rooney in the latter part of my career, against Man U. Been lucky enough to play Man U a couple of times in pre-season friendlies. There was Mel Machin's testimonials. I think there was quite a few playing that day. I think Ryan Giggs played. I think it was Rio Ferdinand's debut for Man U. So there's a few good ones I've played against. They're probably the ones that stick out. Probably Ryan Giggs or so.
So you're now in the AFC Bournemouth Academy training, the under-18s. What advice would you give to a player who wants to become a striker?
A lot of it is confidence, yeah. So, like I say, I do a little bit of coaching with the strikers in the academy. It's to be confident in their ability. Is the biggest thing. It's easy to say, but once you lose that confidence, you start worrying about stuff. So it's the people that once they're at that sort of level, they've obviously got decent ability. They know how to strike the ball. They know how to. So it's to trust your natural ability and try and just be confident. And the biggest thing I'd say, you're gonna suffer setbacks and you're gonna miss chances. You're gonna make mistakes. It's how you just recover from it. Just try not to get too downhearted by that, and just be nice and positive. I'd say the biggest thing. I think most strikers, they're always optimistic, so it's to try and sort of have that inside you, and always think about that one's gone. Try and put that behind you. If you missed it, then make sure that you can carry on with and try and score the next chance.
I only found out the other day that you do have another job as well. Tell us what you do, and did you ever imagine getting into that line of work? And how did you even get into it?
Yeah, no, I'm an electrician by trade now. Yeah, been doing that 4 years. No, just over 4 years. So ended up sort of falling into it, to be quite honest. I was, like I say, finished at sort of Haven. I was doing some coaching, but and it was through a friend of a friend, an opportunity come up that he was looking for people to sort of he was expanding his business with and taking on some more electricians. So it was sort of almost, like I say, just sort of fell into it, and I just sort of, yeah, I thought I'd sort of give it a go. So yeah, but I've been doing it a few years now. So work for a company and full time. So it's, yeah, no, I've enjoyed it. We've got quite a good set of lads, and so you've still got that camaraderie as such, and you're yeah, some good blokes and that I work with, and yeah, obviously a bit different to being a footballer, but yeah, no, it's I've enjoyed my time like doing it, and I say I still do a bit of coaching and stuff, but there's only so many positions for people and stuff, so I was only part time, and obviously need to do other stuff as well.
So, do you think your record will ever be beaten in the English football pyramid?
Not for a while, to be honest. I think it takes some beating. I think yeah, 2.5 minutes. I think people probably take too long celebrating stuff nowadays. There's too many different things they're trying to do. So I was just a quick hand up, and I was off back to the centre circle. So I think that obviously helped me massively. So yeah, no, I think people take too long to celebrate. So I think that's going in my favour.
Well, let's be honest, it's not going to happen in the Premier League because, if there's a VAR decision, it probably takes 2.5 minutes to actually sort
Yeah.
that out, doesn't it, James?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think Mane was the closest one to it. He got there a few years ago at Southampton. I think it was. He was sort of 3 minutes something, or so that's the fastest in the Premier League. And yeah, I got a few phone calls after that. Got close, but yeah, like you say, especially now with VAR in the Premier League, yeah, I think he's got no chance of, of getting to that sort of time.
Would you ever go into football management if it was offered to you?
Yes, I'm not sure I probably would get offered that opportunity. I think, but within a first team environment, I'd like to do something like that. So I don't think I probably would be the actual manager, but I could definitely see myself sort of working within like an assistant or sort of first team coach or something like that. I could see myself doing something along those lines. But yeah, I'm not sure about the management. I think it's a bit too stressful for me.
Fair enough. And of course, one man that was mentioned earlier on, but I know you're very good friends with Mr. Steve Fletcher, the big and legend at this football club. I know that he does watch this show as well from time to time. I'll make sure he watches this one. So yeah, I'll send him over the link. But what was the camaraderie like with him? Because he's such a big character, such a lovely guy.
Yeah, no, like I said earlier, he's my favourite strike partner that I've played with. He took a lot of pressure off of me, and we really worked well together. But like I say, we clicked off the pitch as well. Yeah, he's a good friend and someone that we had a lot of good nights out with and a drink. And yeah, he's just a really good bloke, very funny bloke as well. And he was just great to have around in the changing room. Always make you laugh. And yeah, no, I'm lucky to sort of call him a friend, and it's unbelievable what he's managed to achieve at Bournemouth, and to still be there after, I think it was his 20-year anniversary, wasn't it, recently? Not that long ago. And yeah, so the amount of time he spent there, from obviously going there as a 17-year-old to sort of still be there now, and he is just Mr. Bournemouth. You just, everything you sort of, that's what Steve Fletcher is Bournemouth. Crazy.
Final question for you, James. Of course, you said many nights out there. Is there any stories that you could tell us?
Yeah, probably. No, but I mean, Fletch obviously had well, I'll tell you a little story about Fletch. He's a sort of northerner, obviously, he class himself as, and thinks he's a big drinker. One year we did go as a fancy dress when we were at Bournemouth for a Christmas party, and to be quite honest, we stitched him up massively with the drink. We did spike him a little bit, and he was. I'm pretty sure he was dressed as a cave woman. We had to send him home in a taxi at 7 o'clock in the evening, I think, after being out, because we'd spiked his drink, basically. And he would just remember waving him off, going, "See you later, big un." And he's like, "You've done me. You've done me." Somebody thought he could drink a lot, but yeah, no, that was quite funny. So we sent him off in a taxi at 8 o'clock on our Christmas do to put him to bed.
Do you have any pictures of this said night?
I haven't. No, I mean, that was the good and the bad thing, sort of back then. You didn't have the camera phones and all that. You could obviously get away with a lot more. But yeah, no, it's no. I'm sure there was a couple of photos of us, I think, at a dinner table dressed as in fancy dress, but I haven't got any, I'm afraid.
Disappointed. But no, thank you so much for coming on the show, James. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and all the very, very best. I don't personally think your hat trick will ever be beaten. I think your parents are always going to think, "Oh no, I should have stayed a little bit longer. Should have waited for the next ferry." But you know, you've got that record, and I think I can't see anybody beating it, unless I think there's one person that did it in 70 seconds, wasn't there, for a Sunday League team? We was
Yeah.
looking up, but then again, if you're playing against Dog and Duff Athletic, it's a little bit different playing against Wrexham. So I don't think anybody's going to beat it against a professional football side.
No, hopefully not. Hopefully not. Oh, thank you for having me anyway.
Not a problem at all. Our pleasure, James. And thank you so much for joining us, and all the very best for all the future.
Cheers. Thanks.
No problem at all, mate. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on this special show. Please do remember to hit the like, the subscribe, and the bell button below to be alerted to any new videos we do here on Up the Cherries in All Departments. Please do check out that interview with Lee Bradbury that was referenced. Also, there was an interview with Steve Fletcher that was referenced as well. So do watch those. Do check out all the other interviews on this channel. We've had Harry Redknapp, Steve Cook, we've had Sean Teal, amongst many, many more on here. So do remember to check those out. Remember to hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button as well below. We do have more coming. But until the next one, up the cherries, and I'll see you then. Thank you for joining us.